Well, we have a treat for you today because we have Scott with HomeTeam Inspections.
Hello.
And he's going to be filling us in on all the secrets of home inspection.
All the secrets.
All the secrets. Yep. Because we feel like it's a little bit of a secret process.
No, it's not so secret. We just happen to crawl in every part of the house.
The parts I don't want to go in.
The crawl space, the attic, the fun spots.
I think we need to just start out by saying, what is the most unusual thing you've seen in a crawl space?
Ooh. Animals, snakes, snake skins, possums. You don't want a possum in a crawl space.
No, I don't want snakes in my crawl space.
They're not happy when you find them in there.
No, have you ever got bit?
No. Knock on wood.
So when you're doing the home inspection, a lot of times buyers, like we're as agents, we always recommend a home inspection. And a lot of times people are like, well, why do I need it? So you tell me what you would say if you were talking to that person. Let's make sure I'm saying the right thing.
We're going to tell you everything you want to know and don't want to know about that home. Because our goal as a home inspector, at least my business, is to make sure that you as a buyer know everything you can about that house. The age of the appliances, or the age of the systems, HVAC, hot water heater, age of the roof. We want to let you know of any big unexpected expenses that might come your way when you buy that house.
Yeah, and so what we always tell people is we're wanting to make sure that you know everything that we can't see. Because when we make the offer, we've seen the cracks in the driveway. We may have even noticed little things, but we're not going in the crawl space. We're definitely not going on the attic, and we're not professional home inspectors. So y'all are really looking at
we look at certain things, everything that we see this every day. So we're looking for certain things where you might look at something and you're looking at the beauty of the home and how the colors are, my furniture fit in here. We don't look at any of that. We get behind the scenes and look at the nooks and crannies and the areas that nobody else gets into. So.
And a home inspection, Scott, they're so long, like 40, 50 pages on a good house.
Yeah, our typical one is about 35 pages with about 120 pictures.
Even if it's good stuff.
Yeah, because we also, not only are we going to show you the bad stuff or the maintenance items that we want you to take care of once you buy the home. It's a great checklist to use, but also make you familiar with the home. Where are the water cut off? Where's the main cut off for the electrical system? Things like that. All that's also included in the home inspection.
And one of the things that we always run into sometimes is people, when they so let's say the house is like my house is about 20 years old. So if you came over and did a home inspection, would you expect to find things wrong?
Oh yes, because even if it was built completely right, nothing has changed in your house, codes change. When your house was built, probably GFCI was not required in all the wet areas, bathrooms, kitchens, outside, garages, those type of things. Some of the insulation changes in there. You might not have insulation in your floor under the house where now you need that. So there's different things that change along the way that I just want you to be aware of, because when you go to sell that home, somebody else might ding that as an issue.
And just normal wear and tear on our house. Like Chad's pretty good about maintenance, but let's be honest, Chad, you think he's perfect on maintenance?
I'm sure your gutters are full.
No, I have somebody come do that. What do you think? How many times he's been in the crawl space?
Probably not.
Typically make Sean go in the crawl space if he needs anything looked at. But so I'm sure we would have some things, but what people sometimes are doing right now is they get that home inspection and they want everything on it fixed. Do you think that's feasible for most sellers? No.
I've seen it. I sold a house once and I got a grocery list of things that they wanted from the home inspector, and a lot of those are wish lists. To me, when I talk to buyers buying the house and looking at the report, it's what is first to the safety issues, electrical, plumbing, those type of things. What do you not feel comfortable fixing? Because a lot of it is just maintenance items or deferred maintenance items that you can do on a weekend.
And some of it's preference. Like if you were at our house, there's some things that just doesn't bother us. But if somebody was more picky than currently I am or Chad is, that it might be something that'd be top of their mind when they first buy that house that they want to take care of. But for us, it's just not a big deal. Like what I'm currently thinking of is our patio is you just step off onto concrete. So it's just one good step. So we don't have any rails or anything because me and Chad are, in our 50s and everything. But if I did tell him, like, when we get older, we might need a handrail.
Yeah.
But for us now, so somebody buying the house that was older, because we don't have a big enough step that it's code that we have to, but preference.
Yeah, preference.
Do you think you would knock that out on that?
No.
You don't think so?
Not one step.
I bet he would on this side because it's a little higher one
On
step.
one side, if it's over 30 inches off the side, yeah, you need a rail there for safety.
Yeah.
We don't want you falling off.
Yeah, we don't have a rail. We just put a chair in front of it. That's terrible. But those kind of things. So when we keep mentioning safety items. So give us like 3 safety items. If this popped up on a home report, you would really want to do some thought. Especially if the seller's not willing to fix it.
Well, of course, you know, easy ones that we just talked about, GFCI outlets. That's the biggest safety one in the house.
Okay, that's me. I do not feel like that's the biggest safety item in the house, Scott.
Yeah.
Really?
For the most part, and it's probably the easiest one. It's the easiest, most common one to fix.
Like, to me, when I think of safety items, I think, like, if this goes bad, I'm gonna die.
Carbon monoxide. You'll see that on
Okay.
water heaters, furnaces, things like that. Radon is a great one if you want to talk about a safety item that's nobody even thinks about. Long term, it's a health hazard.
Okay.
So anything over 4 picocuries, I can't ever say that word. That's what you're looking for. So radon is a great one. And there's mold, mildew, air quality is a big topic right now.
Yeah.
It's out there.
So, like, for me, I'm gonna tell you my safety items I hate to see on a home inspection report. Because GFCI, I'm sorry, Scott, I'm still struggling with that one. But maybe it's because it is such an easy fix for people. But like, some big ones for me is obviously when we see stuff going on in the crawl space, because especially if there's growth growing on like underneath it, that can be, to me, hard to fix. It feels like it's not something me and Chad could do in a weekend. It also is scary because when you look at it, you're like, is this the kind that's okay, or is this the kind you croak over dead from, right? So that's a big one for me. Another one that I don't like to see on home inspection is when they open up the junction box and it still has what looks like glass tubes.
Oh, knob and tube wiring.
Yes.
Yeah.
Although they try to tell me that that's fine.
The problem with knob and tube is, especially, and you go back to even the breaker boxes, the regular breakers in there, or like you're talking about the glass tube, the fuse box. Fuse box. Sorry. So the fuse box is, when those blow, people just put a bigger one in there. They don't think about the amperage on the circuits out there. So what's happened is that circuit gets overloaded and that fuse will blow. So people just say, oh, it's a 20 amp fuse, I'll just put a 30 amp fuse in there.
Okay.
And so the wires are still overloaded and those wires get hot, and that's where the fire hazard starts.
And every now and then we still see a house that has paper wiring.
Cloth wiring is very common, especially a house built in the 50s.
Yeah.
So we'll still see that. And then you'll see that it's been completely rewired. No, they've still left it in the walls. So unless you completely gut a house, it's not a complete rewire. Just replacing the panel box is not a complete rewire.
No, because it can still have problems, the cloth wiring in the wall.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. So that's two that when I see that, I'm always like, because both of those are hard to me to fix, inexpensive. So you either have to be willing to live with the risk or not. Now, radon is a interesting one because there's a lot of confusion, I feel like, with radon. We don't see a whole lot of radon testing.
No. I don't get that many requests for it, just because if you look at the EPA guidelines, we're outside of the trouble area. You get up towards the mountainous areas, Cherokee counties, even some in Cobb. And I've had them as far, even LJ, Chatsworth. We've had them everywhere. We've done radon tests. And you can have one house next door to the other, and one has radon and one does not. That's the most confusing part, is which house has radon. You don't know until we spend 48 hours on a test in there.
Yeah. And radon, like, it's natural. Like, it comes up from the ground. No, I'm not a radon expert, so he might correct me here. No. But it kind of comes up from the ground. And how do you treat it?
Really, you're just flushing the air out of the house. You're adding more air flow through the house to get the radon out, because the house captures it. So it comes out of the ground and finds the weakest spot to come out, and typically that's under a house, especially a crawl space foundation or basement that's down in the ground. So those are the most common we see radon in, and we're just a matter of putting an exhaust fan in to flush it out. It's not an expensive fix, but it is a fix that needs to happen.
Yeah, so they put an exhaust fan in, so kind of like you have in your bathroom.
Yeah, it's basically just a super bath fan on the outside of your house to pull it out. You just want to make sure all that leaves the house.
Now, I'm going to tell y'all what I call the redneck version of the fix.
Oh no.
Oh no. Scott's nervous about this. I have had people say, you can just leave a window cracked.
I mean, it will let the radon out, but it does not fix anything. So it's like going to the doctor and getting a pill. It's not going to fix it. It's just going to cure the symptoms.
Yes,
Yeah.
so it cured the symptoms. So,
Not
but
the treatment.
is it not
Yeah.
kind of the same thing as the exhaust fan? Because that doesn't fix the problem.
It's going to
either.
get cold and you're going to close the window.
Yeah, that could be true. That could be true. So how much is the radon test?
It's $150, $200 depending on how far we go and if you schedule it with a home inspection.
Okay, so we don't, like I said, we don't see those all the time. Who should be most concerned? Like if you were talking to somebody like me, where it's not huge on my priority list for it, but you wanted to kind of give me some guidance of, I really think you should invest in a radon test. What kind of, because I've got somebody in mind, I don't see if we're thinking the same, because you can tell it's not been so well for us on all these topics. But who, is there somebody you would think?
Anybody that's buying a house should have a radon test, at least to determine the risk in that. Because
Okay.
you can't smell it, you can't taste it, you don't know it's there until you've experienced it. Radon is the second leading cause of lung cancer.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's Scott's official answer.
Mhm.
So, like with me, what I would look at is, especially if I had a basement
Mm-hmm.
and I knew we were going to have people live in the basement, it'd be huge on my list.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's not a whole, I mean, you got concrete walls. Typically, you don't have as many windows in a basement. So to me, it could build up easier than it would upstairs.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be one. And then I would think people who have other risk factors, like you might be more sensitive to it.
I don't think
Scott's eyebrows are
no,
saying,
I
I don't
don't-
think so.
you just never know who it's going to affect. That's the problem with it.
True.
It's kind of like any type of cancer. You don't know who it'll affect or where it's coming from.
But-
But if you can minimize the risk and exposure to it, that's the key.
But in a crawl space, isn't that what those vents are supposed to do in
Supposed
the
to.
crawl space?
Well,
Okay.
they're not only for radon, they're for the moisture underneath the house, because that's where like you mentioned earlier, your mold,
Mhm.
mildew, and those things grow. You put them in a dark environment, humidity levels in the south are high, especially in the summertime, and then people close those vents and think that they're saving the heat,
Right.
and then they forget to open them back up, and here comes the moisture.
Yeah. Do they save heat if you close them?
I don't believe so.
I don't think so either.
No.
I've actually
No.
never closed mine.
I haven't
So one more thing on a crawl space. Should you ever have water in the crawl space?
either. Never.
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 So we got those vents open.
Mhm.
Big storm comes through. It wouldn't be normal for water to blow in?
Shouldn't be.
Shouldn't be.
Mm-mm.
So really you should never see water
You
in
should
the
never
crawl
see
space.
water in crawl space. Water in crawl space means you have something wrong.
So like my house where I live at now, it has water in the crawl space.
Mm-hmm. Probably have a sump pump to pump it out.
Yeah, we do.
So there's
have
two
a sump pump.
philosophies of that: stop it before it gets in, or treat it once it gets in.
I think our house was built with a sump pump because the
Mhm.
area we live in, and this is just rumor that I've always heard, is the water table is super high in the area, and most every house in our neighborhood does have either
Mhm.
sump pumps or their basements have flooded and they had to get it fixed.
Yeah,
So-
there are several neighborhoods like that you
Mhm.
have to be aware of.
And the sump pump, how does that work underneath your house? Like, because I don't want to ask Chad because you see his eyebrows. That's what Chad
So
does too.
yeah, so basically you dig a pit, make it easy. Put a bucket in the pit, put a pump in there that pumps the water out. So that when the water enters the pit, there should be aggregate around it or gravel around it to let the water go in. The water is going to go to the area of least resistance, which is that spot in the lowest spot. So it should drain to the sump pump and then pump its way out.
And every now and then we can hear it come on,
Mhm.
which is kind of where I'm always like,
What
it's
was
still
that?
working. Well, because they last. How long does a sump pump last? That's another question. Like,
Just like anything else, it'll
yeah, you
eventually
don't know.
die. Yeah.
It's still working. Well, we're going to find out this week because we're expecting 3 to 4 inches of rain, so we'll see. But okay, so we talked about that. Another big one that comes up all the time is windows. why do they change colors? Like, why do you have a beautiful window with the big black stuff around it?
The thermal seal has failed. So there's a thermal seal around the window to give it the energy efficiency, and when that fails or moisture gets into it, that's where it fogs up.
And why do they fail?
Don't know.
Don't know, they just happen.
Don't know, it just happens over time. So maybe it's a window that's not built to specs. You don't know until time sets in.
So is there any, other than the cosmetic, like you can notice them, but what, like if you're concerned about, was this making my house energy inefficient, or like, what's the downside
There's
of it?
probably a little loss in energy efficiency, but nothing that you'd be able to tell.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it's really a
Those
cosmetic.
are more really just cosmetic on that.
Okay.
aspect.
That's good to know, because that comes up
Yeah.
a lot. They almost always seem to fail if they get a lot of sunlight,
If they get a lot of sunlight, they'll usually have one that'll just kind of overheat typically.
and it
And
happens.
a vinyl window usually is the case.
And then another one that we deal with a lot, and this isn't something that y'all, it's not really part of the home inspection, but the septic tank.
Mm-hmm.
So, because y'all don't look at the septic tank.
We don't look under the ground.
Okay, nothing under the ground.
You can't. I mean, if someone mentions, we can tell where one's been. You can tell if they dug it up. You know, sometimes when you walk the backyard to look at the way the landscape flows off and the grading flows away from the house, you can see if there's a issue in the backyard.
Right.
You'll see a puddle, or you'll see a pond, or growth in the backyard even sometimes.
Right.
Which is really
And you would
interesting.
know that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're kind of looking, but it's not really part of the home
Yeah.
inspection.
And we're looking to see. We'll look to see if there's any issues visually that we see, and kind of let you be aware that, hey, you might want to get septic looked at, or if we see a septic tank system in a house and we see pipes in the bathroom.
Oh.
That's something that we don't want to see in a septic tank. So
Yeah.
you need to probably get this pumped.
Yeah.
You know.
And y'all run all the faucets pretty much at the same time?
Yep. And as soon as we walk into a house, it's pretty much walk in and turn all the water on at one time. So we overload the drainage system to see if there's any leaks.
And we sold a house, and we sold the house, and we didn't know this when we put it up for sale. But basically, the people couldn't take a shower and flush the commode at the same time.
Yeah.
And we found that out during a home inspection. And we did have to have a new septic tank put in. They just didn't have a big enough septic tank for the size of house that it was, or something. But so we got it fixed and sold. But on that septic tank, when you're doing that, it's not, to me, it doesn't seem like it's very often. Most septic tanks are built the way they're supposed to be.
Yeah, if they're built properly and the homeowner doesn't put crazy stuff down, it should last a long time without any issues. I've been in a house, I was in a house 20 years, we never pumped the septic tank.
Yeah.
But we didn't put crazy stuff down it either.
But now they're recommending them be pumped every 3 to 4 years. But same way, like I grew up in a house, I don't think my parents have had the septic tank pumped yet, because their philosophy is you don't mess with it till something happens.
Yeah.
When did it change? Do you know?
Don't know. My philosophy is septic is don't mess with it unless I notice that people are putting foreign objects down that don't need to be in it. Or garbage disposal on a septic tank is a no-no.
Right.
Things like that. But if you abide by certain rules with the septic tank, you shouldn't have any problem with it for a long time. But if you are putting foreign objects down that shouldn't be in it,
it could be an
it
issue.
could be an issue rapidly.
Let's talk about animals now. Animals in the attic. That's a question on our seller's disclosures. Do you currently have any wildlife living in your attic? I've never had a seller say yes. They always say no, and I think it's because none of us go in our attics.
No.
And if we do go in our attics, we only go in the part right there by the stairs where we store stuff. So when you're talking about stuff in your attic, what kind of wildlife shows up in the attic?
Squirrels.
Squirrels, yeah.
Squirrels are part of the biggest thing. Bats don't really harm anything. But yeah, you don't want.
You don't want them though.
You don't want them. If you get too many bats, the cleanup for it is rather expensive.
And you can't kill the bats. No, you have to help the bats move on.
Yeah, you put a one-way diverter so they go out and don't come back in.
Yeah. What about rats in the attic?
You don't see that. Well, you see more squirrels and sometimes you see rats, but mostly squirrels in the attic. You see a good bit of, I take that back. A rat can be in the attic for a while and leave a pretty big mess.
Yeah.
A lot of droppings everywhere. That's one of the big things too.
But overall, it's just a matter of getting it cleaned up. They don't do a whole lot of damage in the attic.
Well, the worst thing they can do in an attic is chew on electrical cords, especially with cloth wiring, like you mentioned. They love that.
Oh, they do.
Mhm,
Yeah. Okay. All right. So, anything else we need to know about home inspections?
How long do we have? We can be here all day talking about home inspections and the different things we find, but
But nothing critical.
nothing critical.
Well, thank you for coming
Well, I
in
appreciate
today.
you having me.
Yeah.
Thank you.